Did you used to live out here?
Yes. So I grew up in Seattle. I lived in Seattle most of my life. And then I got stationed down here with a federal agency.
Okay.
And my office was downtown Los Angeles.
Got it.
But middle class,
Yeah.
came down here as working for a government agency at a GS5. That's barely middle class. That's like poverty.
Got it.
And so there's no way to live anywhere close to downtown LA as a middle class person. It's either Hood or Malibu, right? And so I actually lived in Lake Elsinore.
Holy smokes.
God, it's 73 miles each way.
Bro.
And it was
and with traffic, that's like
90, the 91
hours.
It was the 91 every morning and every night.
Right.
And it was to the point, bro, where it was like sometimes it's 4 hours a day on the road. Which here's the thing, you know how when you're in the grind and it's your schedule and you're just doing what you have to do, it doesn't feel like a problem because it's like, hey, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I look back on that and I'm like 4 hours a day in a car.
That steals chunks of your life.
Like, yeah, what was I doing?
Yeah.
But
it's the price you pay.
Here's the other thing about it, though, is that I got stationed down here for work with an agency that I was with the U.S. Marshal Service, which everybody sees that agency on TV and thinks it's the coolest stuff in the world.
Like that movie with
Tommy Lee Jones and Harrison Ford. That's exactly The Fugitive. That's right.
That's exactly where my brain went.
That's where my brain went, too. So I got out of the military and I left the Ranger Regiment doing cool stuff. And I was like, I'm going to do these things stateside with the U.S. Marshals and kick doors and chase bad guys around. And I'm not casting shade at the agency because it is what it is, but they secure the judiciary and they do a lot of protection details. They do a lot of prisoner transports and they do tons and tons of courtroom security. And bro, it was
not
just
quite what you had.
No, dude, it was the opposite. I bet I would make 1 or 2 arrests a month. And then literally every other day you're sitting in court. And it just started to drain my soul.
I wouldn't think that. And
so, I ended up leaving that agency. But the thing is, while I was down here, I connected with the best jiu-jitsu guys in the world. And I got my black belt under Joao and Leo Vieira, which set me on a whole new trajectory to actually have like a credible jiu-jitsu lineage.
Yeah.
And it's been the best thing that ever happened to me.
Oh, rad.
So, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it if I could because that was really special.
That was supposed to be the path.
That was the path.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I moved down here. I was a brown belt in Seattle. And I thought I was pretty good. It's funny because you know how like you step on the mats and you realize you don't know anything. And then you start to gain some knowledge and some understanding. And you start to think, I think I'm getting this jiu-jitsu thing figured out. I thought I had it really figured out because I was a good brown belt in Seattle.
Yeah.
And then I moved down to Los Angeles.
Isn't it funny? It's the field that you're in. Like, there's levels to everything.
And it was another level that I had never experienced and I couldn't even comprehend. And when I was on the mats in Bouchesha's gym for the first time and I couldn't do anything, after practice, I literally told him, I said, can I start back under white belt as you? I said, I'm not being silly. I'm not trying to like be self-deprecating. This is a different thing down here, and I feel like a beginner. And he laughed. He goes, we can't take your belt away, Greg. You just have to represent brown belt as best you can.
Yeah.
So 5 years later, I got it.
Did you stay there for a while then?
Yeah. So Bouchesha and Joao are like best friends, and they're both checkmat, same team. I was with Bouchesha for a few years, and then when he won the world title, and he became like the biggest name in jiu-jitsu, he moved away from coaching to focus on being a full-time athlete.
Sure.
And then I joined Joao's gym.
Gotcha.
But you know how all those Brazilian kids, they move up here and they just take like whatever coaching position they can get. And it's funny because I look at Marcus. I remember when he was 21-year-old Brazilian kid sleeping on couches, making $40 a class.
Wow.
To like one of the biggest superstars in the sport now. And now he fights for ONE FC. He got signed by them.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so.
Time and effort, man. Time and effort. That's what it takes.
It's cool, man. Yeah. So we just pushed record like I requested, huh? And we're going? Awesome, man.
Let's roll, man.
That's how I like to do my show. Ed said that's how you like to do it, too.
Yeah.
Just conversations, man.
Bro, I've always said it. I said, Ed, I always like to imagine that I'm sitting in an airport. My flight is delayed. I meet a guy at the airport bar, and we just start shooting the shit.
Yes.
Like, that's what I see in my head. Just two dudes bellied up to the bar. And I feel like that's a real authentic conversation. And it weaves in and out wherever it ends up going, because that's what a conversation would be.
That's right.
But if it's like bullet points and questions, like, I don't fucking know.
Like, dude, I don't do research on my guests. Like, maybe sometimes enough to just know, like, okay, what is their deal? What are they about? But I want to learn about them. as I'm sitting here,
Yeah,
you know?
I like that.
And I think also listeners, what are people missing in today's society? Connection and conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're driving, when they're where I used to be, driving 4 hours a day, and they put on a conversation,
Right.
that makes them feel like, okay, I'm sitting down with the guys and I'm learning.
They're the third party.
And they're part of it.
Yeah.
Like how many times have you been, I mean, I don't get this often, but I get it enough to where like you're in a restaurant or something and a guy comes up to you and is like, hey man, I'm a big fan of your show. Mm-hmm. And that person already has a relationship with you.
Yeah.
Isn't it cool?
Yeah. Yeah. They know your stories.
Yeah.
They know what makes them laugh. They know what makes them cry. And I think that's a powerful thing, man. There's this dude, he died. They called him the 3-foot giant. He was in a wheelchair. Sean Stevenson, but not Sean Stevenson with the Model Health Show. He's still alive and kicking. He's a good dude, dear friend of mine. Anyway, he's a 3-foot giant. He was in a wheelchair. His claim to fame was Tony Robbins. So he went to a Tony Robbins seminar like 30 years ago when Tony's first coming up. And he's 3 feet in total in a wheelchair. And Tony walks up to him and they're like, hey, what's wrong? Like, why are you in this wheelchair? He's like, like, I've got very fragile bones. Tony just scoops him up and picks him up. And the person who was with Sean Stevenson is like, whoa, be careful, you're going to break him. He's like, no, he'll be fine. And so he and Tony just built a friendship. For the record, people are asking, he did not break a bone on him. He put him back. He put him back in his wheelchair.
No,
right?
he's fine. Whoops.
Yeah. So here's the cool part. Years later, I get to meet Sean Stevenson at Joe Polish's event. I was speaking at Joe Polish's event. By this point, Sean Stevenson is like one of the best orators out there, and he's like getting paid big bucks to keynote. And he gets up on stage and he goes, if you can make people think, make them laugh, make them cry, you've built a connection. And when you think about it, the people that you know best, you've probably like pondered life with them. You've thought, right? You've laughed with them. You've probably shared some sad, unfortunate moments with them. You've cried. When you can make them think, make them laugh, make them cry, there's a connection. And I think that's what real human connection is. And it's missing because on social media, everything's homogenized, right?
Yeah.
And so this type of stuff, man, really, really fills my soul.
Dude, I love that.
Yeah.
So I thought what would be cool today is just to kind of dive in on like who you are, where you're from, just kind of give the background because you're an immigrant as well, right?
I am.
And so, bro, that's a powerful story in itself because, you know, we have so many people in our society that are like, oh, well, poor me, must be nice. And they think like, oh, if you're successful, it's because of this or that. And the men that went out there and made it happen from the ground up is always an inspiring story that I think needs to be shared. Yeah. And then I'd love to go down some of the rabbit holes on like your personal excellence courses that you're running. I just saw you recently did like a father-son retreat, things like that. Yeah. And then lastly, like, you know, someone that's an athlete and owns a gym and like a lot of our stuff is about health and fitness. And I feel like I've had a lot of people on that understand that and you understand that as well. But one thing that's missing is the entrepreneurship aspect of being a man. I think a lot of people struggle with that. And one of the most common things that I hear from listeners, because a lot of my show's listeners are military, soldiers, police officers, things like that, they want to get out of the matrix and they feel stuck.
Right.
And so I think like that's a path that you probably have more insight on than almost anybody.
If there was a category that I had a black belt in, it wouldn't be jiu-jitsu for now. It would be entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And it's because it's been 25 years of sustained growth. And at the level that I play at, international franchising, we're not just a franchise in the United States. We're like in Canada and now heading into Australia. You're dealing with the Federal Trade Commission and then the equivalent of the Federal Trade Commission of other countries, because franchising is highly regulated, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's 7-Eleven, Subway sandwiches, Jiffy Lube, or my company, Fit Body Boot Camp. Anyway, so, dude, I'm the Cinderella story, like the Cinderella man. And I say that because imagine, I'm born in 1974, so I'm 50 years old. That same year, my dad, in Armenia, where we're from, gets asked by the Soviet government, would you like to be a member of the Communist Party? Only 18% of people at the time in the Soviet Union were members of the Communist Party. That gives you a different passport. His passport was bright red. And you see that sticking out of their shirt pocket, like you know you're dealing with someone formidable. Mm-hmm. And so, people will always ask me, like, well, why didn't your dad say no? If he was such a, westernized person who wanted to escape and come to America, he could have said, no, I don't want to be a member. Because technically, they ask you. They don't make you. They don't go, hey, Greg, you're now a Communist Party member, right?
Yeah.
They want to give you the option. But if Greg was to say no, Greg ends up in Siberia. Never, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So it's not really an option. So I always have to tell people that. It's not like here where you actually have freedom. This is like in North Korea where homeboy says, oh, yeah, there's an election, and I won again. 100% of everybody voted for me. Okay, come on, right? So anyway.
Do you remember the forced mourning of Kim Jong-il?
Yes. Like, could you imagine having to, make a scene?
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't give a shit about this guy.
And if you don't... you're going to disappear. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, you end up in their Siberia. And so anyway, my dad becomes a member of the Communist Party in 1974, the year that I'm born. And Armenia, for those who don't know, was under Soviet rule at the time. And for those that don't know, in 1980 when we escaped, so 6 years later, we escaped Soviet Union, Armenia, and come to the United States. My dad, bro, he's got such a story. I've got to tell you the story. He was a tailor. And no one works, like you can't have your own little shop somewhere. Like he worked for a clothing manufacturing plant, and he had worked his way up. So he oversaw, I think, like 40-something tailors, and they made men's suits, jackets, vests, pants. And the way he describes it, he goes, son, they give you a paper pattern, and they go, all right, you put on the material, and then you cut it. They give you so much material. He goes, but I figured out if I put the patterns really close together on the material, for every 10 suits we make, we can have enough extra material left for one more suit.
Oh, wow.
So he found that instead of having spoilage, like leaving a lot of room in the paper patterns, I'm going to keep the patterns tight. And now I've got enough material made. So then he takes that home, makes suits on the black market, sells them, makes enough money, 25,000 rubles at the time, bribes some government officials to allow our paperwork to go through, to allow us to go as tourists into Italy, Rome, Italy, in 1980, June 2nd, we make it into Rome, Italy. My dad and my older brother, go into the American consul, which I got to go visit 2 years ago, which was pretty rad. I remember the outside of it from being a kid. But there was these hotels in Rome, Italy that would take in escapees, Russian Jews and Russian Armenians. And they would dedicate a portion of their hotel rooms to these escapees who were escaping communism. And so we had to tell the Soviet government that we're going on vacation to Rome, Italy, so that they do our paperwork. And we had to make it look like we're going on vacation. So you're not leaving with all your shit.
And so is it safe to assume another reason why he would agree, yeah, I'll be part of your party, to build a little bit of trust there?
Trust. And
to also allow him to be able to do these kind of things.
Not only that, but if you've seen the movies that depict that time, I remember standing in long lines. I'm talking like Taylor Swift type of lines, right? Like when people wait for a ticket outside at a stadium. Lines like that in the snow. My mom had this giant fur coat she would put on 5-year-old me. And it was like this fat lady in front of me, and my mom behind me, and you're just being squished, right? And you're waiting for bread and cheese and butter, and you're just inching forward only to get to the counter of this barren store. And they go, sorry, we're all out. But if you happen to have that bright red passport, or if you happen to know someone with a bright red passport.
Oh, they have a couple more loafs of bread.
They happen to have something behind the counter for you.
Wow.
So all of a sudden.
Yeah, you're playing this game.
Yeah. My dad's playing, he has to because remember, it's communism, so there's an embargo against bringing anything in. So whatever you can raise and grow in a cold environment is what you eat, right? And so there wasn't a lot of food there. And so my dad used that, pull or influence that he had to get us food and to build that trust and relationship, worked his way up high enough where he could bribe them and make our way into Rome. So 2 suitcases, family of 5. I'm the youngest, 6 years old. We go to Rome, Italy. He and my brother, who was 19 at the time, they walk into the American consulate and go, hey, we're political refugees. We're escaping the Soviet Union. If you send us back, we're going to die. But I'm a Communist Party member, and I know you guys hate communists, so I'll tell you everything you need to know. They pumped my dad for information for 10 days, and on June 16th, we come to California. They're like, what state do you want to go to? And he's like, well, I'm tired of the cold and snow. I've heard California and Florida are warm, so I'm going to California. And that's how we ended up here.
Man, I feel that I
fucking
feel
crazy.
that story in my heart.
Yeah.
How old was your dad when he did this?
I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. My dad was 45. So imagine.
Okay,
like,
that's my age right now.
Okay.
So I mean, and I got 3 little kids. Well, they're not all little now, but still like ranging from 9 to 15, and to like, yeah, I feel goosebump energy too, because I'm imagining taking my entire family of 5 with a couple suitcases and saying, start over.
Yeah. And by the way, you know they're going to be looking for you.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't come back. What a disgrace. How dare he? Right? He didn't come back. And on top of that, I was describing to someone, I was on a podcast in Dallas recently, and they're like, wow, that would be like if I went to Spain and I didn't speak Spanish. I'm like, dude, you got Google Translate. That would be like if you went to Mars. Like if Greg and his family went to Mars, like no iPhones working up there. You don't know the Martians. They got a different culture, different language, different everything, and there's no way for you to communicate, and you have to start assimilating and learning.
Let me ask you this, because on one hand, like, that's terrifying, that's scary, that's hard, but was your family so elated to escape that it was like, hey, it's
ecstatic.
It's good. We're happy.
Yeah.
We're like, there's no sad story in this.
Yeah. Well, dude, you know the history because you're a war fighter. Before the U.S., 25 years ago, went into conflict with Afghanistan, Russia in 1980 was at war with Afghanistan.
Oh yeah.
And my brother was about to.
We still saw people getting blown up by the Russian mines when we were there.
Right, exactly. So my dad would see Russian military men coming back with arms and legs missing. And he goes, the hell if my son's going to turn 20 next year, join the Red Army of a country that essentially took over our sovereign country of Armenia, and I'm going to send my son to get killed.
Go do more of that.
Right.
Wow.
So he's like, we're getting fucking. He had so many reasons to leave. Dude, my dad wore Jordache jeans, Ray-Ban sunglasses, and he listened to the Beach Boys and Elvis. Like, if that's not the most Americanized Russian Soviet ever,
it was destiny to come here.
He was not meant to be there. I don't know how he spawned into that country, but he did. And so he had so many reasons to escape, and he was willing to risk his life. And so we come here, and being the youngest, I think it was the greatest gift to me. My brother and sister, my brother's 19 years older than me, or sorry, he was 19, so he was 14 years older than me. And my sister's 16 years older than me, so she was 22. They had a hard time assimilating. Language barrier, culture, they each had boyfriend and girlfriend, I was a kid, I was 6. And my dad's brainwashing all 3 of us. Like, this country's going to give you so much. There's so much opportunity. There's equality for all. Like, you just have to work and add value. And if you work and add value to the lives of the people here, it will reward you. That's how this country works. I'm 6 years old. Whatever mom and dad say, you're going to believe at 6 years old.
Yeah.
At 19 and 22, you're skeptical. You have some cynicism. So my brother and sister had a hard time, man. Like, they were crying every night. They would miss their friends. They would miss everything they had. To me, I'm living in Section 8 housing. We have food, right? We like government peanut butter, government cheese. My dad
probably feel rich,
bro, like billionaires. I didn't know. Like, you don't realize you're living in government assisted housing, and then they give you this plastic card. Laminated card. You remember lamination? I don't know if they laminate these days, but they give you this laminated card, and so at school I just get free food, right? Because I'm an immigrant, I'm a foreigner, we're broke, we qualify for the free lunch line. Okay, so the kids laughed at me because I'm in the free lunch line, but I got free fucking food.
Yeah,
right. And
laugh all you want.
Yeah, I remember just months ago there was no fucking food, right? And so I'll take it. Laugh all you want.
It's probably good that you were old enough to remember.
Yeah.
Because those lessons I'm sure that you've carried them your whole life.
The 2 biggest lessons I've learned from we moved 9 different times within the first 6 years to different housing complexes, apartments. And they're all ghetto, and one of them was in Santa, you're familiar with this, so Santa Ana.
Yeah, that's where I flew in yesterday.
Okay, so where all the gangs and stuff were prolific out there, and so you're getting beat up by the Mexicans and the blacks because you're the foreigner. They were fighting each other until you come, and then you got a weird little bowl cut. Your mom dresses you funny, and so they're like, "Hey, let's pick on the foreigner." But soon you become friends with them.
Yeah,
you become friends. They teach you English, and so my friends were white and Mexican and black. The weirdest people I met were Asians because it took me years to meet my first Asian. I was like, holy shit, their eyes are weird. Like, I remember feeling that way. Like, what the fuck? Like, black people didn't trip me up because my friend was day one, Dwayne, black dude. But it was so cool to be able to learn the language, assimilate, remember how things were, trust my mom and dad, what they said, and belief. There's 3 big lessons I took away in the first 5 years. We moved around so much that, man, for the most part, everyone's pretty cool here. You know what I mean? For the most part, everyone's pretty cool. Now, did we hear things like, go back to your own fucking country, you foreigners, you're taking our own jobs? Because if you remember also, 1985, the economy crashed, people lost jobs. And I remember thinking, man, my dad's delivering newspapers, he's pumping gas at the gas station, and he's a busboy at a pizzeria. Like, that can't be the exciting jobs that you're trying to retain.
Yeah.
Right? But they needed a scapegoat. They needed to yell at someone. Why not my mom and dad? I get it. And so, but we moved around so much. I went to 3 elementary schools, 2 junior highs, 2 high schools. And the thing that I remember learning most that I use today is resilience and resourcefulness. Because you're getting beat up, you're getting called names. My dad found those big giant blue dumpsters in the back of a grocery store. I don't know, do you remember Alpha Beta, the grocery stores?
No.
When you were out here? No, okay. So Alpha Beta used to be a thing. It's like a Albertsons or a Kroger's. He found a blue dumpster, and they would throw food in there that was expired or maybe had some mold on it, like cheese and bread. But it's still edible if you pick off the mold. And so being the smallest in the family, he would lift me up, throw me in, and I would take food out. I'm like, how about this? He's like, yep. Throw it over. How about this? Yep. And the lettuce, I'd find lettuce. It was all nasty, but you peel enough of the lettuce leaves away.
Find some goods in the middle.
Yeah. And so, we bring 20 heads of lettuce home, and my mom has enough to make 3 salads, right? And so all of that, I have fond memories because I was young. My brother and sister, on the other hand, see it like as a struggle.
Yeah.
And so I think, one perspective is everything.
For sure.
How you, in Viktor Frankl, in Man's Search for Meaning, when he's in a concentration camp, his perspective of, I'm going to gamify this and make it a game of survival.
Yeah.
And outwitting them, outcunning these Nazis. And so my perspective was, this is fun. My dad said it's a great time and a great opportunity for me. Hey, I'm going to a new school. I'm going to make new friends. So I learned resourcefulness and resiliency just to keep bouncing back. Today, my superpower for, if you were like, what is a thing that helped you grow a $200 million empire? I'm not going to list off a marketing strategy or a sales strategy. I'm resourceful. I'm resilient. And I can bounce back from the pandemic. I can bounce back from anything entrepreneurship or life throws at me, simply because of those lessons that I learned as a child, moving around, making new friends, getting beat up, and then making friends with the kids who beat me up so they don't beat me up again.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what a great experience.
Isn't that funny, too, how we want to give our kids the best life possible, and we want to take care of them, and inherently we kind of want to make things almost easy for them.
Yeah.
But every story of a man that rises to the top, if you look far enough back, it's that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's adversity, it's struggle, it's challenge.
It makes you gritty.
And then you start to find those traits, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. And those traits end up, like, where do you learn resiliency and resourcefulness? Okay, on the mats in jiu-jitsu, maybe in a gym, maybe in a boxing club. What university teaches that?
Yeah.
Like, there was no university that teaches how to survive a global pandemic. Yet as an entrepreneur in 2020, I think anyone would agree that gyms and restaurants really got hit in the shorts the hardest where the pandemic was concerned. Bro, I have 600 franchise gyms, Fit Body Bootcamp, right? Like, we lost 218 locations. Imagine seeing your whole brand, your identity collapsing in front of you. Because say what you want, your identity is tied to your business. It just is.
Of course.
It's like you have 3 kids.
Yep.
Your business is your 4th kid, right? You have to nurture it. You take care of it. Just when you think it's doing well, like something goes sideways on it. You're like, shit, I got to get back in there and take care of this baby. And so for 15 years, I'm growing Fit Body Bootcamp. And then in like 15 weeks, we lose 200 some odd locations, millions of dollars. I'm selling off real estate property because we went through the PPP loans, we went through the EDIL loans, and now I'm selling off real estate to keep my business afloat. And I was like, I don't care if we go down to 1 location, I will turn this thing back around. But I realized it's the lessons as a kid, resiliency and resourcefulness, that made me so scrappy and gritty when brands like F45 and 24 Hour Fitness sold off 50, 60, 70% of their equity to private investors for pennies on the dollar. I still hold 100% equity in Fit Body Bootcamp. Now, nobody wanted to be me in 2020.
Yeah.
Like, I remember our dear friend Andy Frasilla reaching out, like, bro, you okay?
Yeah.
I'm okay, Andy. You're not going to do anything crazy like kill yourself, right? No, Andy, I'm not. All right, bro. If you need anything, call me. Thanks. And then Tim Grover calls. Bro, you okay? I'm okay, Tim. And then Milet calls. You okay? Yes, I'm okay. Unless you can stop the pandemic, there's nothing else you guys can do. Just root for me.
Let me ask you this. Looking back, was 2020 now a blessing in disguise for you?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yeah. Because I don't know if there's any area that you could relate this to in your life, but I had it pretty easy as an entrepreneur. And I think it's because I lived a gritty life as a kid. We moved around. My roommates were always cockroaches and lice. Like my mom washed my hair with gasoline. She had my dad siphon out gasoline from a parked car when I was a kid because we couldn't afford lice treatment.
That kills the lice?
Yeah.
Good to know.
So yeah.
In case the apocalypse ever hits.
Right. and so like when you experience that, right. And so business, while it's hard, I was able to kind of thrive through as an entrepreneur. Just figured it out, pivoted, moved, resiliency, resourcefulness, belief, etc. And so I've always in the back of my mind been like, man, I might have a rabbit's foot stuck up my ass where business is concerned. Maybe I'm just right place, right time. The economy crashed in 2008. By 2010, I'm like, one-on-one personal training gyms are struggling. Those outdoor boot camps are kicking ass because they cost less and Mrs. Jones can afford them now. Because she can't afford $700 for one-on-one personal training. So I took the outdoor boot camp, brought it indoors. Fit Body Boot Camp was made. Like I found a opportunity, as Napoleon Hill would say, in a state of adversity when the economy had crashed, the housing market. So for me, I was like, I might always have this perpetual rabbit's foot up my ass. I create a supplement line, Truly, and it just takes off, right? Not to say I haven't had my setbacks, I have, but I've always been to thrive out of it. So 2020 comes, and I'm like, this is gonna now test my entrepreneurial and my leadership muscles.
Yeah.
If that rabbit's foot is up my ass, please work now. And I realized that I had what it takes. It's a test. It was a rite of passage for me as an entrepreneur, and bloodied, having lost millions of dollars, and 218 franchise locations. By the way, keep in mind, each of those franchise locations, they're small business owners. They're a mom and pop that own one of our gyms. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you have other people's livelihoods on the line too.
Right. And in different states. So you're trying to manage different state mandates and stuff, and you're talking to your lawyers, and I'm going on Fox News talking out against the government like this can't be happening. We need to be, we're tribal people. Like our immune system thrives when we exercise. Our immune system thrives when we're within proximity of other people. How are we sending people to Walmart and Target, and they're allowed to lick doorknobs, but you can't fucking walk into a gym? Our gyms are getting fined $5,000 per incident. Southern California ones, Michigan ones, Pennsylvania, New York. $5,000 to let a client in. Bro, we're not selling hookers here.
Yeah.
It's a fucking 30-minute workout, right? And so each time I go and rant, my attorney calls and says, you can't say that kind of stuff on
and
there.
You're like, I can say whatever I want.
Because I'm telling our franchisees, just put butcher paper on your fucking windows and start training your clients. She's like, you can't do that. Like, you're going to have a class action lawsuit. I'm like, I won't have anyone to sue me at the rate that we're losing locations. Class action lawsuit from who? I've lost 200 some odd locations already, right? So, like, I realized 2020 tested me, and I realized, no, maybe I am a decent entrepreneur. Like, maybe I do know how to make decent decisions. Maybe I do know how to pivot quick. And so for me, it made me a better person. And now it's funny, your thermostat, I've never been to war. You've been to war. Your thermostat for chaos is so high.
Yeah.
Like, what might make someone like run around with a chicken with their head cut off? You're like, bro, relax. That's just a flat tire.
Yeah.
Like, no one's shooting at them.
Yep.
Because that's your threshold. That's your thermostat for adversity.
Well, I feel like jiu-jitsu is a good tool for that too.
Yes.
Yeah, it helps.
As a one-year jiu-jitsuer,
yeah.
Yes.
Well, bro, it's funny because like once you can start to find comfort in very uncomfortable situations, that's a superpower that can be applied to any aspect of life.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was a crazy time, man, because, I mean, we connected because I was standing up against...
In your car. I remember the
my
car
police
rant.
car.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so funny because...
I remember that.
I was just telling him about it, like... That was just a 7-minute video sharing my thoughts. Yeah. And then before I know it, like, I'm on the phone with Andy Frisella and texting with guys like you, and it's like, oh, my network of people just grew exponentially because like-minded people like hearing other people stand up for what they believe in.
Right.
But the other side of that is I was already a small business owner. I had my jiu-jitsu academy as I was a police officer. And, when I got fired for that, it was like, oh shit, what are we going to do now? And the gym ended up growing by 600%.
Wow.
And
because of that.
Because of that.
Right.
Well, there's two, it was two things that really made it grow. Is one, I got a lot of notoriety. So people saw that video. My name became very familiar in like my community. And so people like hear about that and like, hey, doesn't he own that gym? So people started coming in. Mm-hmm. But the beauty in that is the people that were motivated to come in because of that story, we already were like-minded people.
Right.
And then the other thing is exactly what you said, where, some gyms are like, can we just put butcher block paper over the windows and train anyways? Man, I was to the point, I was so fed up with the government at this point, where I was like, you know what? I have my body armor and my AR-15 in my office. And if you want to come and take me out of here in handcuffs, it's a fight to the death. And that's coming from a guy that was a cop last month.
Right.
If you cops are going to side with tyranny, then you have to understand what that really means. Yeah. And this is how I feed my kids. And I've done a lot of deployments, and I've killed other men for shit that was way less important than my own children.
Right.
Right? And so, and you want to know the crazy thing, bro? I would hug my wife goodbye to go open the gym and teach jiu-jitsu, and it had the feeling like I was deploying to Iraq. Yeah. Like, well, is this going to be my last hug? I
imagine it was a feeling like something that you've experienced before.
It was, man, because I'd made the mental commitment. Because are you buddies with Ian Smith? Did you connect?
Yeah,
okay, so remember how many times Ian got drug out of his gym in handcuffs?
Chained the place up,
in handcuffs. And bro, good on Ian, because like he's still here and he's thriving now, right? But I had so much anger in me at that time that I made a commitment. I said, I'm not being taken out of here in cuffs and there's not going to be a spectacle on the nightly news.
Yeah.
It's not happening. Yeah. So I'm open. If you want to train, cool. And if you think that it's too dangerous to train, then don't train. Very simple.
Yeah. Don't
right? And bro, because we were the only place in town, you know how many people we had bring their kids? They're like, oh, my daughter's in dance, but this dance is closed, or my kid's in soccer. We don't even know what, a lot of people are like, we don't even know what jiu-jitsu is, but we heard from a friend of a friend that it's the only activity because the schools were closed,
right?
The sports were closed. And so, bro, our kids program, it became pandemonium.
Beautiful. And the depression rates, by the way, for kids during that era was like 400% greater than adults because, again, they don't have the mental resiliency that adults do. They need interaction. Like, you literally saved the lives of kids, bro. Like, when you look back, what you guys did there, like, good for those parents for doing that.
And, bro, we're both reasonable men. Like, our eyes work. You can have a good take a temperature of your community and be like, hey, how serious is this? If people were dropping like flies, guess what we would do? Right. We would act accordingly. But for me, the catalyst that was like, okay, well, this place gets to be open, but I don't get to be open. And that place gets to be open, but I don't get to be open. And you could just see this game that started to be played, right? And so I walk out my driveway one day and I look at the back of my truck and my tags were expiring at the end of the month. And I thought, I bet that the DMV is open because that's government revenue, right? Everywhere else is closed, but a little green sticker for your truck, that's essential, right? So I call them up just to see. And sure as shit, they're like, yeah, we've been deemed essential. We're open. You can come pick up your tags. And I was like, all right, if a little green sticker is worth risking somebody's life, then jiu-jitsu is too. Fuck you guys.
Yep. Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. And, it's funny, the pandemic, in my eyes, not only showed us who the posers and the patriots are, but also showed us, in my eyes, how far we had gone in the process of losing masculinity, patriotism, and who we are as a nation, which is why the pendulum's swinging back so hard right now. In the last 15 days, Trump's just like fucking scorched earth. I love it. I love it. Like, wait till my next move. Like, good for him. But
you got like little betas like Justin Trudeau trying to posture in the last 15 minutes.
God, within days and then changing his tune, right? Come on. But it shouldn't even have to come to this if we would have just like kept the backbone as men. And I think it is the men who just constantly allowed the system, the government, churches, schools, media, social media, movies, etc., to dictate what a man is.
That's right.
Now shut up. Now shut up. And so they encroached, and we found ourselves in a corner, saying, "Okay, I can't go back anymore. If you come, I'm grabbing my AR and body armor."
Yep.
We should have stopped here. Like,
should have stopped right
there. What do you mean I can't be a man? What's wrong with acquiring things? And I'll acquire things, and I'll be competitive, and I'll beat my chest. And oh, by the way, when there's a loud bang, I'll be the first one to run towards it.
Yeah.
That's what a man is.
And bro, and I'm sure you experienced this too, where one thing that really started to rub me the wrong way is, man, behind closed doors, in the lunchroom, where, you know, when you're texting with your buddies, everybody is like, fuck the government. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do this. I'm not getting vaccinated. They can fucking fire me. I won't arrest somebody at a park. Like, there was a lot of talk, but there wasn't a lot of action. And men that I held respect for, I watched them cave. I watched them take a knee, and it's like, oh, well, bro, this is how I feed my family. It's like, listen, we all got families. We all got mortgages. We all got that fucking sob story too. But if you're going to teach your children that you bend a knee for a big enough paycheck, then that's the lesson you're teaching your children.
Yeah.
I'll go out in the woods and fucking starve to death before I do that.
Yeah.
And it's like, and don't get me wrong, part of that's ego too, right? Like, that's a healthy side of ego, I think.
But there is healthy ego.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's a blessing in disguise, because I look back on my warfare now and kind of see like, oh man, a bunch of young kids being used as pawns, right? Yeah. But one thing that combat taught me is that, like, man, I'm comfortable pushing to the very fucking end. And this isn't me like beating my chest or trying to sound like a badass. It's just, when I'm confronted with highly, highly dangerous situations, I know that I can thrive in those, and I don't let fear to dictate. And I'm comfortable if I have to face the end of my life doing something that I believe in.
Yeah.
And warfare taught me that. And so I was like, all right, I guess it's time to employ that mentality again. And if I get shot by the SWAT team for teaching jiu-jitsu to 10-year-olds, then that's what they're going to have to fucking do.
If that's who they're going to label as
yeah, that's right, dude.
Like, what have we come to as a country?
Yeah.
Right?
And it's funny too, because in my mind, and bro, my brain will race like a hamster wheel, and I'll start kind of coming up with, oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? And before I knew it, I was like, man, it's only a matter of time. And I started like kind of getting spun up around it a little bit. And the funny thing is that the town sheriff, who has since done my podcast, right? I've built a relationship with him. Yeah. He said, like, hey, we're not going to mess with Greg's gym. And I've since told him, I'm like, I think I'm alive because of you. You know, because if I was in LA County,
right,
man, it would have been a different story. Yeah. But, you know, and he didn't say, like, don't mess with Greg because, like, he's afraid of me. He said, don't mess with Greg because he was in alignment with us. Yeah. Like, we're not going to use our deputies to shut gyms down. And so his name's Adam Fortney, and I always give him a shout out because it's like, man, it may have seemed insignificant at the time, but the cops and the sheriffs and the chiefs that stood up had massive impacts on their community.
And there were those. In fact, there's a sheriff out here, I forget his name now, San Bernardino sheriff. He was like, I'm not shutting down businesses. We have bigger fish to fry.
Yeah.
Whereas in L.A., like, why are you shutting down businesses? A friend of mine owns Old Brea Chop House, Tony, in Brea, California, right? 20 minutes from here. Bro, it's a steakhouse. You just want to go on a date night, and you can't. He goes, come in through the back. You'll come in through the dish room and then into the kitchen. And so, you know, we're sneaking in. And I'm like, Tony, I'm not here to transact fentanyl. I'm here to, like, eat steak. It's a shame that I can't come in through the front door because cops are staked out.
Fucking cops, man. Like, and dude, I was a cop for 10 years. So I know there's a lot of good men and women in that profession, but what were you guys doing? Yeah. Doing a stakeout on a steakhouse? Right. Like, what the fuck are we doing, man?
What have we come to? What have we come to? But I'm also glad the pandemic happened, because I think that might have been the thing that started to, you know, amplify the woke culture, amplify this entitlement, get people so sick and tired of the inflation, of sending money to countries that don't. The money, by the way, doesn't. You saw with the USID, Right?
Yeah.
That they're fucking sending money to help other.
And they're not, and the countries aren't getting
it.
any
$50
of
million for electric vehicles in Vietnam, bro. They fucking operate off little fucking like little Vespa scooters.
Or transgender studies in Pakistan.
Stop.
Just like all kinds of crazy shit.
Yeah, so it's all being exposed, but the pandemic needed to happen to expose the men who say that men who were wearing shirts that said 1776, don't tread on me, and I know one of them really well, and I was like, bro, are you going to stand up and do something here in our little town of Chino Hills? Like, he's like, what can I do? There's a lot you can do.
Yeah.
You can at least post on social media. You could at least go on the march that the rest of us are going to. You could do something. And a dear friend of mine, he's an actor. I won't mention his name. Really good actor, too. In 2020, I'm posting shit on social media. He's texting me and saying, screenshots of my posts.
Be careful, bro.
And saying, I want to like this. I want to leave a comment, but I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
It's like, hey.
Because he's in Hollywood.
It's like, bro, go into your kitchen, reach up in that top cupboard, or way in the back, and grab that jar where your fucking balls are at.
And screw them back on. It was
man.
It really was exposing, but I think we needed that, man. And I hold nothing against him and all these other guys, because since then they've woken up. I've had many friends who were absolute liberals who have woken up and realized that, hey, you can be a liberal, but not to the point where we absolutely shit on our country.
Yeah.
And then turn the government into this, like, here's a blank check, write a check wherever you want. I'm not gonna question it.
Well, no, and people can learn and shift perspectives, and I think that that's good. You know, like whenever Andy talks about accountability, Andy Frisella, he's like, and listen, the people that have changed their ways, they don't get put in the wood chipper. It's the people that were the puppet masters that were pulling the strings that made it all happen, right? Yeah. But a lot of people were just victims of the biggest propaganda campaign that humanity's ever experienced. Yeah. And it's sad and it's frustrating that a lot of men didn't see that for what it was. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? What are you doing?
To me, where men are concerned, compliance was just as bad as being the puppet master. Like, compliance with that shit was just as bad as being someone who was actually oppressing us.
Especially if you're in a position of power, like a patrol officer. Right. Like if you're, I remember I watched one, a lady was doing a Instagram live at her candle shop. And she said, hey, since I can't have customers anymore, I'm going to start selling these candles on Instagram live. And she'd hold up a candle and be like, this one, and explain it. It's $20. And cops came in the front door. They're like, this place is supposed to be closed. And she goes, I'm here by myself, but I still have to, I'm trying to move product. What do you, you can't have this place open. And they arrested her. And I was just like,
fucking robot.
Oh, bro. Dude. And the worst thing, it would make me fucking crazy is when they'd say, look, listen, I don't agree with what's happening either, but I'm just doing my job.
I'm doing my job.
Is locking someone in a gas chamber just doing your job? Like, at what point do you have to look in the mirror and be like, okay, something feels a little off here? Yeah. So,
and again, we can beat this drum to death, bro. But
sometimes it's fun to revisit it because, it is cool to learn, to revisit the lessons that were learned, and then also, let's just not forget that just happened to us too.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is that. It happened to us, and enough time will go by where we will forget. Just like, I'm sure you remember exactly where you were in 2001 on September 11th. I know exactly where I was that morning when those planes hit. Enough years go by, and we get comfortable, we get complacent. And now this pandemic, right? We all know we were tested, and as a society of men, we failed. We failed. Yeah. As a society, we failed. But as a society of men, we failed miserably.
Yeah.
Holy fuck, did we fail? And so enough time is going to go by where we're going to forget again. And if we could I keep reminding my son and my daughter, like, you cannot forget this. Like, because, they're 17 and 19 now. So, they were like young teens.
Yeah.
So they remember very clearly having to do school from home and having to ask mom and dad, like, hey, are we going to lose our home? Are we going to go bankrupt? What is bankruptcy? Why do I hear you talking like that? Because we start thinking like, all right, I don't know how long the pandemic's going to go. I lost 218 locations. I got like 300 and change left. Maybe instead of fighting for them, maybe I need to ask my franchisees to shut down. Maybe I need to go bankrupt. Maybe I need a clean slate. So you're having these conversations. Kids are hearing it, and they're just like, I don't know what this is, Dad, but are we going to be okay?
Yeah.
And so it was a scary feeling, man. And I constantly remind him, like, we're going to survive this, but y'all can't forget this. That's how it gets repeated.
Yeah. Now, was that also a kind of a catalyst to one of your missions now, where you're being very intentional about building curriculums and programs to empower men, both like older men and younger men?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that something you were into prior to this, or was that kind of a...
I actually started the project. It's called the Modern Day Night Project. And I didn't have the Father and Son one yet, the Squire program. It was just this project, the Modern Day Night Project, in 2019. So,
dude, just unpack that, because I think this is one of the most important things as a society we need to be doing, is empowering young men.
We do. I saw the writing on the wall. I saw the writing on the wall like a decade earlier. So, like 2005, 2006, 2007, I saw that, all right, all these sitcoms where the dads are just these goofballs. They can't even tie their shoes. They don't know where their keys are. The mom tells dad, like, bosses dad what to do. The mom is now treating the dad like her boy.
Yes.
I don't like
that. Dude,
that.
we're on the same wavelength. I wouldn't let my daughters watch the Berenstain Bears.
Right.
Because every episode is, oh, Papa, and he's just always being a fool.
Right.
And Mama has to come in and fix everything. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the message for sure.
And I saw that. And the year earlier, 2018, my book Man Up was published. And get this, I sold enough copies. According to my publisher, I sold enough copies within the first 3 months to become a New York Times bestseller. However, because if you remember in 2018, there was a whole Me Too movement.
Oh, yeah.
So New York Times says, yes, you sold enough copies, but we're not going to put you on the New York Times bestseller list.
Because you're a sexist pig.
Yeah. So me and Howard Stern are in good company. We both have a book that sold enough to be on the New York Times bestseller list, but we never made it. But Wall Street Journal put me on the list. Amazon put me I was in the top 10 sellers of Amazon for 4.5 months straight. Of all books, not in some obscure category. But I share this with you because in my book I talked about, like, as a man, as anyone, like, you have to be formidable. It's a muscle, and your mental and emotional muscles must be constantly trained. We can't just go to the gym and train our physical muscles. We have to constantly test our physical, mental, and emotional muscles as well. And so I said one of the best ways for me to do that was take on new challenges and then hire a coach for 6 weeks. So the first one was a marathon. I always told myself, God's built me to lift weights. I was born with traps, bro. I was born with traps and quads. Like, what do I do, right? The communist way.
Opposite of a marathon runner.
Yeah, right. So at 242 pounds, when I was a competitive powerlifter, I was like, fuck it. I'm going to sign up for a marathon, right? So hired a running coach. I'm like, hey, in 6 weeks, I'm running the San Diego Marathon. She's like, run the half. You can't do the full marathon. I'm like, yes, I can. You're going to coach me. Now, it was painful. It was horrible. Like 11 o'clock at night, my wife and kids would go to bed. My kids would go to bed by 9. I'd stay awake with my wife for another 2 hours, watch some of our favorite shows on TV, and then she'd go to bed. I'd lace up my running shoes. And I didn't even know what running shoes were. So the first run I did was with Chucks. I ran with Converse on.
You hadn't found Hoka's yet?
No. Right? And, bro, this is hilarious. The first run was, I go, look, I've never run before. I would run to like maybe a Wendy's across the street from the gym to get 11. I would get 11 hamburgers after a leg workout. But I was on a lot of Sestanon and fucking all this shit.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So I would get 11 hamburgers, throw half the buns away, and then that was like the lowest price of protein I could get. So I'm like jokingly telling the running coach, Jill Brewer, I'm like, I would run across the street from LA Fitness to the Wendy's and get burgers. That's all the running I've done. So first like 3 days, it's walk, jog a mile. Greg, that's it. Walk and jog, whatever pace you can jog at, right? And so I lace up my Chucks, and the first day I go, and the next day I wake up with like hip pain, knee pain. I call her, I'm like, I'm in a lot of pain. She goes, are your shoes old? Maybe they're worn out. I'm like, no, they're brand new Chucks. She goes, are you a fucking idiot? I go, what's
You don't know what you don't know, dude.
I don't know, bro. Right? Like, I got all types of straps and chalk and all that for the gym. I don't know anything about running. I go, Chucks are not the right shoes? She goes, no. Is there a snail's pace? Yeah, there's a snail's pace here in town. Go there, they'll fit you for shoes. So they give me Brooks because I pronate. So,
okay.
With the Brooks, the knee pain, hip pain, all that went away. But trained for 6 weeks, ran a marathon. And I was like, holy fuck, in those 6 weeks, bro, when you can carry your body 26.2 miles at 242 pounds, and I swear I was leaving like footprints in the asphalt as I was running that marathon.
It's fucking Clydesdale.
Yeah, some kind of like mental, like you develop some edge mentally. Like everyone else is smaller than you, and everyone else has probably done a marathon or trained longer than you. You're just going at it in 6 weeks, right? So I was like, fuck it, what else? I'm like, well, I've always wanted to surf. I'm going to learn to surf. And so surfing, I told myself I'll never run again. That was one time, one and done, checked it off, done, right? Surfing stuck. Trained for 6 weeks and then got really good at surfing. That stuck. I was afraid of heights, so I did rock climbing. Here's a great rock climbing one for you. I'd go to Joshua Tree out here 3 times a week for 6 weeks. I found a good climbing coach. The first time, because I'm afraid of heights, I'm not suicidal. I'm going to say that right now. I'm not suicidal, but you put me on a high, like, rooftop, and I come to the edge, bro, for some reason, I just want to fling myself over. And because I think
that sounds like the opposite of afraid of heights. It sounds like you kind of like them.
I just want to like end it before, like, in my head, I'm like,
just get it over with.
Someone's going to push me, or a stiff wind's going to knock me over. So I want to be in charge of my own death.
Yeah.
I've analyzed this enough with my therapist, right? and my therapist laughed just like you. His name is Kevin Downing. He's 60 some odd years old now. He's like, you're not suicidal. I'm like, no, I love life, but I'm like, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die on my terms, right?
No wind's going to get me.
No wind's going to get me, exactly. No stiff breeze is going to lift this 242-pound man. So anyway, long story short, first time at Joshua Tree, he teaches me what belaying is. He teaches, here's the hat, here's the shoes. Okay, these shoes, the harder you press, the better they stick. And oh, by the way, you got big legs, so use your legs. You can't just try and climb. Check, got it. And he goes to put the carabiner up there. And bro, no fucking safety gear or nothing. Like, so this is not even a straight wall. Like, he pretty much like a mountain goats his way up there, puts the carabiner in, slacks the rope right through, and he's like, all right, you're going to climb this. I'm like, well, that's easy enough. You just fucking mountain goat it up there. I could do this with a rope and a fucking hard hat and these shoes and the harness, and he's going to belay me. Dude, I go up high enough on that first session, and I'm like, wow. I'm like, Mike, I can see the horizon. This is great. I need to come down now. He's like, no, you're good. Like, you got to go check that carabiner I put up there. No, Mike, we'll do that on the next session this week. No, Bedros, you're good. And all of a sudden, he's trying to talk me, like, out of this fear state that I'm in. And I'm like, Mike, I just need to come down. Like, I could see everything. It's a beautiful view. This is fantastic. I want to have a good experience here, Mike. And I feel something tapping the bottom of my foot. Bro, he put his hand up, and he was, like, getting my attention. Like, Bedros, you're okay. I was, like, maybe 8 feet off the ground.
Oh, wow.
I was so afraid, right? Within 6 weeks, I'm doing straight rock faces. I'm doing ones that have cracks in it where you slap your hand in, make a fist, and pull yourself up. I'm like, what the fuck? Still scared. Still don't want to look down.
Yeah.
But
the new capability is there now.
And I realized how much is it's all mental, right?
Yeah.
And so then I did salsa dancing. Everything that I thought I wasn't good at, I was like, I'm going to get fucking good at. Improv, because I'm an introvert. So I'm like, I'm going to take a 6-week improv class and fucking get really good at fucking doing improv.
When you say improv, like comedy? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you're there with like professionals, and they're like hooting it. One of the weirdest things was they give you these weird speeches, like one from George Washington, one from Hitler. And they're like, all right, read this in a sad way, read this in a funny way, read this in a hysterical way. And so I get one handed from Hitler, and I'm supposed to read it, like, be funny, right? I'm like, bro, I can't say those words. And this shows you how emotionally constipated you can be, right? By the end of 6 weeks, I'm like, yeah. straight. Like, you just let it rip, bro. You let it rip, because if you want to change and transform, you're going to do that. Like, that's what the coach is there for. And you got that one was a class, and so you got all these fucking badass comedians around you, some actors and stuff, and they're like, "Dude, just let it rip." I'm like, all right, no one's going to fucking, like, you guys are going to call me racist, right? Because it's fucking Nazis. Y'all handed it to me. So anyway, I share that with you because then I did gi jiu-jitsu, which I didn't quite like, but I was like, all right. And then when I discovered no-gi, that started off as a challenge.
So no-gi's your shit?
No-gi's my shit.
Okay.
Yeah. But I share this with you because in my book, Man Up, in 2018, I talked about the 6-week challenges that I did that helped me become tougher mentally and emotionally, and I developed new physical skills beyond the gym, beyond just squat, deadlift, bench, right? And I was like, and I can translate all those to fatherhood, to marriage, to business, to like better emotional discipline. I can keep my, I'm more stoic because of all these things I've done, these challenges, because they've put me out of my comfort zone in a way that nothing else has, especially when you have like a marathon to run or a competition to do at the end of that 6 weeks. So all these guys were buying the book. They're like, dude, you should run something for us, like a 6-week challenge. I'm like, just go find your own fucking challenge and do it, right? They're like, no, you should run something. So you get enough of those messages from people buying your book. I reach out to Ray. Do you know Ray Kashkar?
I've met him. Okay. I wouldn't say I know him, but yeah, we've met.
Great dude. Dear friend of mine. I reach out to so he's a Navy SEAL. He actually helped take Osama bin Laden down. He was part of the phone triangulation that relayed the message back to CIA, the CIA lady who then messaged the Joint Command to deploy Team 6.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I actually met him at, remember when Ian Smith did his big freedom rally?
Yes.
At his gym?
Right.
And everybody went out there for that?
Yeah, Steve Eckhart, and he went up. I wasn't able to go out another thing, but Ray went. So Ray, as a Navy SEAL, was one of our, I was like, Ray, I know you're working for the CIA right now. He would deploy. I go, in between your deployments, and this is 2019, I go, can we run a class? I think we need about 75 hours. I need you to bring, like, physically beat the fuck out of them. And then we had an MMA instructor, Aaron. I was like, dude, we need to teach him MMA. Because I'm like, if these guys want a challenge, I can't make it 6 weeks long. But I bet if I did the math, like what I needed, like I need about 3 days, 75 hours. So, and Steve Eckhart, who's this fucking sociopathic Marine, one of my dearest friends, I've known him for 11 years now, was a coaching client and now a business partner. I'm like, Steve, you're going to be the fucking hammer. You're just going to take their souls like beyond what Goggins would do, right? So Steve's the hammer. Ray's bringing the physical challenges. Aaron's teaching them MMA. I'm teaching them entrepreneurship and life structure, right? Oh, and then one of my friends, Matt, he's a former SWAT operator. He's teaching them how to shoot. I'm like, I'm going to wrap up a challenge into masculinity, because a lot of you motherfuckers are not fucking masculine. You want to do a fun challenge like Bedros did in his book. I'm going to wrap up the pill with cheese.
Yeah.
So you're going to learn how to be formidable, right? Because to me, a masculine man does need to learn how to earn money. And the reason is it's the modern day version of hunting.
Of course. That's
like
right.
If we were cavemen, like you would kick me out of the
if you can't feed your family, yeah.
If I can't feed my family, you're like, bro, you're a liability.
Yeah.
We got to kill you and eat you. We can't fucking just feed your family.
Well, bro, and that's, again, like I touched on it kind of early on, I think it's a really good thing to shine a spotlight on, because like my circles of men, fighters and special operations guys and jiu-jitsu guys, it's like on the physical scale, they're as tough as men get.
Yeah.
But a lot of them can't figure out that other side.
Yeah.
And that's part of being a man in today's world.
I think you use that skill more than the violence.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Now, I want to know how to deploy violence. God forbid I need to. But the skill of acquiring money and then using it to have shelter, food, security, experiences, you use that 90-some-odd% of the time of your life.
Yeah.
The other 2%, you're on situational awareness and you're ready to deploy a gun, a knife, or your fucking fists, right? Which, by the way, me and Dan Flashman own a ranch in Temecula. It's a 26-acre ranch. We rescue all these animals, one of them being a fucking Highland cows.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So, they have like...
Yeah, the Scottish Highlanders, the long hair.
Yeah. So one of the cows when we rescued, she was pregnant. And so she has a little baby. Out comes Pickles. We name him Pickles. Pickles has little stubby little horns, but he's cool, he's likable, and we have this whole pinned off area where all the baby goats and sheep and all that shit hang out. So we put Pickles there, and the ranch hands take care of him. And so, bro, so in Armenia, I grew up on a little farm. My grandma had a farm, so I had a pet goat. Like Americans have dogs, I had a pet goat, and my pet goat would follow me in Armenia, like a dog. Like I would hand feed it carrots and shit, right? So there's this foreigner in me that still has this liking to farm animals because I see them as pets. And so whenever I'm running events at the ranch, I'll just go to that little pen area during lunch and stuff and spend 30 minutes in the pen. So now Pickles is the largest animal that we have in the baby pen, right? And which is like 5 times the size of this room, so big area. Giant metal gate. The last 2 times I had visited Pickles and the sheep and the goat, like Pickles comes up and snuggles up on you and stuff while you're petting the goats and stuff. So it's like, hey, give me attention. So you give him attention, and then you go back to... A few months went by. We're running a Squire program, that father and son program at my ranch. I'm like, hey, you know what? When the sun, because we start at 6 a.m. I'm like, when the sun comes up, I'm going to go visit Pickles. It's been like 5 months since I've seen that guy. And when I say little guy, I mean little for a cow, right? So he's like 3 times the size of this table. And, dude, I go there, and I can see he recognizes me. I open the gate, get in, close the gate behind me. And now, as I'm walking towards the sheep and the baby goat, Pickles is kind of just gently ramming me with his head. I'm like, hey, buddy, knock it off, right? And now, the faster I walk, the harder he's ramming me. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Okay, don't panic. You're good. You know jiu-jitsu, right? Right. And I'm like, how the fuck do you get an animal in an armbar? You can't.
Yeah.
And do you do a guillotine or rear naked? He's got fucking horns now that are about 3 inches long, right? but I just saw him 3 months earlier, bro, and he was fine. Now I'm trying to pet the goats. He's fucking hitting me hard. Now I'm like trying to manage his head and his neck.
Is he protective of him now? Is that like his flock?
As it turns out, he had dropped his nuts.
Okay, the testosterone's kicking in. He wants to fight now.
He wants to fight me. I don't want to fight. I'm here to fucking love you guys up and then go back to training these dads and sons, right? So now I'm like backpedaling, trying to work my way out, fucking trying to be a fucking matador. And I get to the gate. I'm like, Pickles, fucking stop it. And he's not listening. He's not a fucking dog. So I'm like holding one horn and trying to open the gate behind me. Fucking close the gate behind me. I'm like, fuck you, Pickles. Fuck you. We used to be friends. I storm off, and Kane, he's our ranch security guy, always carries a pistol on him. I'm like, Kane, what the fuck? If I had you near me, I was going to grab that fucking pistol off your hip. He goes, what's going on with you, boss? I go, fucking Pickles went ape shit. He goes, you went in alone? I go, yeah.
You can't do that anymore?
Not anymore. I go, there's a fucking sign, Kane. He goes, oh my God, he would have killed you. I go, yeah, he was trying to fucking kill me. So jiu-jitsu does not work on cows.
Yeah, that's hilarious, man.
But going back to this, we decided we're going to run a 75-hour experience for men who want to develop like just mastery in faith, family, fitness, and finance. Because I realize men who fuck themselves up, in other words, go down the rabbit hole of porn, alcohol, weed, gambling, you name the vice, are men who have lost a sense of fulfillment, purpose, right? Meaning. And if a man doesn't have meaning, it's like a German Shepherd. When I got my German Shepherd dog, Cookie, the dog trainer that we hired, she trained her for a few weeks, and she's like, look, this dog needs to feel like your property is her domain, your kids are the animals that she's shepherding, and she needs to have routine and purpose. The purpose are the kids and the security of your property, and then the routine needs to be you throwing a ball every day at the same time, 10 to 12 times before you go to work. I'm like, yes, ma'am, got it, right? I don't want a depressed dog. I go, why? What would happen? She goes, the dog will get depressed and anxious. I'm like, oh, that's so sad. I don't want that. She goes, even worse, that beautiful rose garden you have, that dog will tear up that fucking rose garden. She'll dig holes everywhere. I'm like, fuck, all right, got it, right? And didn't realize this dog was going to be so fucking high maintenance. So, bro, I'm a good fucking rule follower. If I'm not an expert at something, you tell me this is how you do jiu-jitsu. Yes, sir, I'm going to fucking get it right. And so I'm like, every fucking morning, I'm throwing the ball with Cookie 12 times, right? And Chloe and Andrew have become her little fucking sheep that she shepherds. And everything's fine. And I realize men are no different. When we don't have a sense of purpose and a reliable routine of faith, family, and fitness and finances, we begin to dig holes in our life by way of infidelity, alcohol, porn, gambling, vice, you name it. It's the same thing. We're no different than dogs. We just think that because we walk on our hind legs, we're better. We're not. We're the same fucking thing. And so I decided that we're going to focus on faith, family, fitness, and finance and get these guys to a place of fulfillment because they probably feel like robots. They're just working. They're just earning. They don't know how to defend themselves. They never shot a gun. They've never been hit in the face. So we're going to do pugil sticks. So 75 hours, we ran the project. Of course, the first class that we run, Ray, the Navy SEAL, he's like, hey, boss, we're going to need a bell. I'm like, the fuck do we need a bell for?
For him to quit.
Yeah, and I had no idea. I'm like, dude, they're paying $12,000 a piece for the 75-hour experience. Like, these people are not quitting. He goes, you've hired me to get people to quit. I'm like, no, I've hired you to push them. He goes, not everyone wants to be pushed. So reluctantly, I was like, fine, go get a bell. You're going to see it. It's going to be a wasted $50. So we got a bell. They fucking put it on a 2x4, and the bell went everywhere with us, to the beach, to the fucking hike.
So you ring the bell, go get in your car and drive home?
Yeah.
Wow.
Bro, 2 dudes quit. First class. Second class was bigger, so 5 dudes quit. Third class was even bigger. 13 dudes quit. I'm like, holy fuck, you paid money. You told your spouse, your kids, like, I'm going to a 3-day experience. You're going to go back 2 days early. What are you going to tell them?
Yeah, what do you tell them?
Right?
I would never want to be seen again.
Yeah, bro. And I was like Papa Bear. I'm trying to like, no, don't ring the bell. I'm trying to fucking like literally slam their hand away from the bell. And some of them I was able to Papa Bear them. So Ray's like, dude, he goes, you're too soft with these guys. Your call sign now is Papa Bear. I'm like, oh, all right. Like they all have like cool call signs, like fucking Dagger Face or whatever. Like, yeah, my call sign is Papa Bear.
But Ray knows as well as I know that in selection, there are the guys that are just pure assholes that are there to try and make you quit.
Right.
And then there's the dudes that want to lean into you a little bit and be mentors too.
Yeah.
And that's all by design, I'm sure, you know?
And I saw a little bit of me in every single one of those guys.
Of course.
I was a fat, chunky foreigner who was scared. You know what I mean? I was scared. That's why I was able to make it in this life because we never had money. My dad would always say, we run out of money before we run out of month, you know, when we first came here. And so, like, I saw a little bit of myself in every one of those men that went through the project. And so to see them quit was also to see like the old version of me quitting something.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, man, like being a coach has really shifted my perspective over the last couple of years. Because I used to be of the mindset, like a young ranger, if you can't hack it, get the fuck out, right? And there are a time and a place for that too. But the other side of it is there's a lot of people in society. Like, what is my gym's overall mission now is to be able to make the average soccer mom, the average overweight dad that just rivets planes together at Boeing.
Yeah.
How do we empower those people?
Right.
How do we make them look inside of themselves and decide, you know what, I'm going to be better?
Right.
And it's some people be, oh, you'll be a fucking McDojo. It's like, I'll never be a McDojo. Like, our jiu-jitsu is real and it speaks for itself. But not everybody can just be thrown to the fire right away.
Right.
There's a different onboarding process for certain people if they've never done any of that kind of stuff before.
Yeah. How about this? Like, I'm 50 years old. I got into jiu-jitsu to no-gi, and it's very fast-paced.
Yeah.
Like, it was a very big reality check. And, you know, Mike, the black belt who I train with, he's like, hey, man, since it's rash guard and shorts, just roll your clothes up and take it to your speaking gig. He goes, every city has a jiu-jitsu school.
Yeah.
And so I would find these schools that there, I'm not just training with the black belt who's going to be gentle with me or know when to.
You're fresh meat.
I take a class. And I was like, holy fuck, this is humbling. Like,
do you have a very specific moment that you remember when you're like, oh no, this is what jiu-jitsu is?
I do.
Okay, because like just like you said with 9/11, most jiu-jitsu people are like, oh wait. I always tell people that on the mats, you don't meet your opponent. It's not you. The person you meet on the mats is not your opponent. The two people that meet on the mats are the person that you think you are, and then the person that you actually are.
Oh, bro, okay, this is embarrassing, but you're asking.
Of course.
And see, it would take a jiu-jitsuer to ask this because you've probably experienced a version of it yourself.
It's seared in my brain.
So imagine this. Now, Mike Velez, what is he, like a 3rd or 4th degree black belt, Mike?
I think second.
Second degree black belt. Awesome dude. Our age.
Which means he's been a black belt for over 6 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And he started Jiu-Jitsu magazine back in the day, like good friends with Jocko. He always goes to that training camp they run out there. In fact, this year I want to go with him. But he's a big, thick dude as well, like me. He's voluptuous like me. I like being jacked, and I do get on his ass. I'm like, Mike, we weigh the same, but composition's a little different. I say that with respect, but yeah, I see the black belt, but you know. So, anyways, he's a good, and we're working out together now too, and so he's really getting even more jacked. But, bro, I didn't realize how your fight or flight can kick in.
Oh yeah,
I had this is embarrassing to say. So I realize now I had him in a sloppy half guard. I didn't even know what a half guard was. It was
just clinging onto one of his legs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He had taught me guard, like one of the first things, right? And of course, I couldn't get a full guard, so I got a half guard. I didn't even know it was a half guard. It was just clinging onto one of his legs. He wasn't even trying to do a smother tap, but his chest was just somewhere around on my face. Today, I know to just turn my head this way or turn my head that way. I'm fine. If I can breathe out of the corner of my mouth or one half of a nostril, I'm good. I felt so much anxiety that, like, I guess claustrophobia. I don't even know. I don't even know how to break this down. I got to talk to fucking Kevin, my therapist, about it.
Bro, Kevin might not know what's up because there's only one way to know what's up.
Oh, you would know. Yeah. One, the anxiety set in, and two, all of a sudden I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
And so I tap, and he goes,
it wasn't a submission.
I didn't do anything.
Yeah,
I go, Mike, I couldn't breathe.
It's like you did a lot, Mike.
Oh, my heart was like,
yeah.
I ran out of air.
Bro, I love that you brought that up. I love that you brought that up, and I love that you have a little bit of embarrassment around it because let me tell you something, dude. For the rest of your jiu-jitsu career, there is another man somewhere that can bring back that feeling.
That is scary to think
and
about,
it's funny because I got to the point where I didn't think that you. I mean, I could have Buchecha, the world champion, just kicking the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And even though it sucked, and even though I'd like sometimes throw up after the end of the round, I never had any panic in me anymore because I felt like I'd worked that out of me.
Yeah.
And I did for a period of time. And then I moved back to Seattle and wasn't rolling with the monsters anymore and came back down here. And I felt it coming back. So it's like, and it's funny because some people don't want to admit that because it makes them feel embarrassed or it makes them feel weak. But this is what's going on. Our physiology of fight or flight Like, I either need to be able to beat this person up or get away from him. Mm-hmm. That's been happening since the dawn of mankind. Yeah. I always say the two things you need to have some level of proficiency in is fighting or running. You know what I mean? You have to have one of those options has to be available to you. Yep. When you get someone that pins you on the ground and controls you, well, now they are winning the fight. So what do you want to do? You want to just get away.
And you can't.
And you can't. And once both options are taken from you, anxiety sets in.
Yeah. It's a vulnerable feeling.
Dude, it is. It's a terrible feeling. Yeah. But it's so funny you say this. I just told this story on last week's episode too, but I'll share it again. I had one of the dads, because a lot of our new students, the majority of our new students are guys or gals that bring their kids in. They watch a practice and then they're like, hey, I'm 42 years old, but do you think I could try this? I'm like, of course you could try this. Grab a gi and hop in with us. Yeah. And one of the dads pulled me aside and he goes, hey, man, I don't really know what just happened, but I had like an anxiety attack. He goes, someone was on top of me. I couldn't get him off me, and I don't know. I just started panicking. I said, welcome, brother. Like, that is one of the best lessons that you can learn, because the majority of men have never even felt that.
Right.
And so when you have people who are like, oh, I just fucking see red and start swinging, or it's like when a fight starts to go bad, how do you emotionally handle that? Yeah. And there's a lot that goes into that. Yeah. And people that haven't experienced it, you can't really comprehend it.
It was a very humbling experience, and you described it so well. We're designed to either fight or flight when both options are taken away. And they were. And as I think about it, I had him in my half guard. Sloppy one at that, because I was on my back, not on my side.
Yep. Yeah, when your top shoulder touches the mat, your half guard's killed.
Yeah. And then he was trying to just probably work his way to my neck or something. But he was like, literally, he goes, I deployed nothing. And he didn't. As I look back now, because I've been in that position a million times now. I'm just like here, and I can have a little pocket. I could breathe while I try and think and frame and all this. I realized both options went away, and I got like anxiety kicked in, and I tapped.
Yeah.
And then I remember afterwards, I was like, hey, I need a drink. Because normally then we'll just bump and then restart. I was like, I need a drink of water. I'm going to be honest. I stalled. So I'm like, my heart's still racing. Like, I got scared. And so I drank water, kind of let my shit settle. Didn't have enough time to process what happened. Actually, just now it's all making sense, what you said. Both options were taken away.
Yep.
Right? And so I'm left with the one and only option of
that option is I'm dying.
Yeah.
That's the option. Right. Your brain says, oh no, I'm dying.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I talk about it all the time on my show. It can be your best friend on top of you, but the physiology of what's happening, your lizard brain thinks it's dying.
Yeah, it's very real. And it's so funny, man, because I learned about the term like virgin neck, because there's been a couple times where, and like, just in the beginning with Mike or his son, fuck is his son's name? I forget anyway, his son would take my back, and he hasn't even put on a full rear naked choke, and I would tap, and he would look at me. I'm like, dude, you're choking me out. He goes, nowhere near it.
Yeah.
Now, like, I see the curtains close.
Yeah, you know how far you can push it too. And I tell my team, don't push it till you pass out. That's stupid, right?
Yeah.
But push it, fight it, and see how far you can take that, because that lets you know. You know what that submission is called these days, right?
Which one?
Just pushing their chest on your face.
Oh, the smother? No, I thought it was
mother's milk.
Oh, really?
Mother's milk.
Okay, yeah,
that's what.
Yeah.
And so
I got mother milk.
You got mother milk, right? And dude, Nicholas Marigali, who's one of the best competitors in the world right now, he's tapping black belts in high level competitions with that.
I mean, I guess it's legit,
because he figures out how to control the head, and then you control the far arm. So it's like a head and arm, but instead of putting the head and arm across the neck to choke, you just pin it to their ear, and then you pull everything to the side and just smash their face right into your chest. Brilliant. And you're watching some of the best guys in the world, and you know the energy of a tap, because if it's like, all right, you got my arm, right? Or if it's like, get the fuck off me. Yeah. And you're seeing him do that to some of the best guys in the world.
That is
so
crazy.
That's in us.
It's
funny. I always say I think that is in every man if you dig deep enough, other than prime Diego Sanchez.
I'm guessing he's
UFC fighter.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Bro, so you obviously are not. You don't follow UFC much at all.
I'm big friends with Chandler.
Yeah,
I watch a UFC fight here and there, but
this fucking kid would go out there and just. Every fight he would almost die. Just absolute no quit inside of him.
Wow.
Like a fucking Terminator. Diego Sanchez.
I'll have to look him
like a robot, man. And he's fucking probably 40 something now. He's since retired. But when he wasn't the best fighter, but he had no quit in him. Yeah. And that's what made him entertaining to watch, you know?
Yeah. I got to tell you, man, I mean, I'm telling you what you already know, but jiu-jitsu has, like, surfing and weightlifting, it's there for me. Like, if the world went to shit for me, I'd either go surf or lift, or now I'd just go find a jiu-jitsu school and just roll.
Yeah.
It's become that for me. It's the people, when you're in a good flow, like, time passes, your problems become so insignificant.
Yes.
Weightlifting, jiu-jitsu, and surfing has done that for me. And then, like I said, the people that you meet, and I travel the country speaking, and everyone's so welcoming.
Dude, it's good vibes everywhere, man.
They won't let me pay. I'm like, let me just pay. And some people know who I am, and others don't. They're just like, nah, don't pay. You're fine. You're just coming in for the day. Because I tell them, I'm in for the day.
Well, bro, what I think makes jiu-jitsu so magical is, dude, we're going to go figure out each other on the mat. And we're going to see what's up. And you and I are both going to have an understanding of that person's strengths, that person's weaknesses. Yeah. Hey, you can beat me, but I can beat him, and he can beat you. Like, there's no dick measuring because it's all understood.
Yeah.
But it's not understood from a place of like, oh, I'm better than you, or like any of that energy. It's just inherent because it's reality.
Right. Right.
And men find comfort in reality. I tell my team all the time, a pecking order. A pecking order can be established and people can abuse it and be dicks to people. But if the pecking order is established from a place of love, man, it feels good because everybody can just do what? They can go, because you put a group of men together, what are they always doing, man? Everybody's always sizing each other up, and it's a dick measuring contest. Mm-hmm. Even if it's a group of guys that tend to get along or be friendly with each other, there's always that thing, right? Jiu-jitsu extinguishes that thing, and now we can bond as men because we've already worked that out.
Yeah.
And, bro, my jiu-jitsu academy is like an onboard process for, like, spiritual growth, because what I'm finding is all of these men, the initial phase of jiu-jitsu is figuring out that stuff that we just talked about, like, who am I, what are my capabilities, what are my strengths, where are my weaknesses. And once you start to have that understanding of who you are on, like, a foundation, well, dude, now you know what the next level is?
What's that?
Sitting around a campfire talking about, man, my fucking uncle used to abuse me when I was a kid. Yeah. And, like, we are seeing this, like, this transformation from people. It started with grappling, and now it's shifted into, like, this people call the gym like their church or a sanctuary because, man, people are now opening up. They're being vulnerable. I put a big sauna in there, and they call it sauna confessionals.
Oh, I love that.
At the end of the night, and people just go in there and get raw with each other. And it's such a powerful tool to connect human beings in a time when we're disconnected, man.
You've heard the term blood is thicker than water, right? But that's taken out of context. And this is what I share at the project. And it's funny you say this, because the real saying is the covenant of the blood is thicker than the water of the womb. That's the actual saying. So, meaning, you've been to battle, you fought against the enemy side by side with other men. There's a bond there of men who have spilled blood or gone through adversity that is thicker than the water of the womb, meaning the bond that you might have with your own sibling.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I found jiu-jitsu brings, because now, in a year's time, I go OCD on everything. When I like something, the 6 weeks was over, Mike's like, well, good meeting. I'm like, Mike, are you willing to come?
I'm here forever.
Like, are you willing to keep training me? He's like, yeah. I go, great. I'm going to travel the fucking country. It's like this jiu-jitsu nomad, have my ass handed to me, but walk away learning something and making a new friend and following new people and just some awesome fucking cats. But I realized at the project, strange men, 25, 30 strange men. And the project is always broken down by 1/3 are entrepreneurs, kind of high-level entrepreneurs, because it's not cheap to do the project. 1/3 are military, former military and first responders, and we give them a massive discount. massive discount to come because they've lost their sense of purpose, mission, and team.
Yes.
And when a cop, a firefighter, a former military guy is no longer in that space, they've lost their sense of purpose, mission, and team, which entrepreneurs don't necessarily have that because, you know, we don't go on missions, right? It's the mission is grow this fucking company. You hire people, they can quit at will. You deal with the problems and no one's shooting at me. Like, guess what? I lost 218 locations during the pandemic. Not a single gunshot was like, I wasn't having to duck behind a fucking car and going to the fight or flight that I was having was like, I might go broke. I'm bleeding money. I'm not bleeding blood. We're good. But I noticed at the project, these strange men who come from all walks of life. And again, they're protected, right? They all have this proverbial wall up.
Yeah.
And it's 75 hours straight. Now, they get about a total of 9 hours of sleep throughout the entire experience, just like us. We sleep when they sleep, whether it's at the beach, on the hikes, or in my gym. And by about hour number 30, 33, 34, they start calling each other brother. They start carrying each other's rucksacks. Like, if it's an uphill thing and you're just not an uphill kind of guy, like, your homie's carrying your rucksack. And then by hour number 40, 45, 50, when we're doing these long marches that Ray and Steve take them on, and I'll just kind of cruise around the whole line and listen, they're having deep, meaningful conversations that at hour number 1, they were just sizing each other up.
Yeah.
You know, and I fucking love that. And I see that these men are putting down their emotional armor, right? And it's because they are shedding blood together. We make it as close to, because look, they're getting on the mats, getting choked out. We teach them how to box. We teach them how to grapple. They go at it with pugil sticks. They learn how to clear with pistols and rifles. And they're like, fucking working their nuts off, like throwing up, having explosive diarrhea. Like, there's true injuries that come from the project, and we've got 2 full-time medics on hand. But it's great to see these men, all of a sudden, the wall comes down for the first time. And then at hour number 40-something, I've got one of the evolutions. The only project evolution, the ice bath doesn't make them cry, the truck pull doesn't make them cry, the beach torture that Ray puts them through doesn't make them cry. Some dudes have fucking, like, the waves are taking, they're linked up, but the wave will take them because they live in a landlocked state, so they've never experienced the ocean, right? Yeah, and there's riptides, and I know Newport Beach really well because these are the areas that I surf, and so all of a sudden I'll have to like swim out and get a guy, pull a guy in, and that even doesn't fucking phase them. What phases them is the evolution called toxic cognitions that me and my therapist came up with, where now hour number 40, we sit down, all the video guys go away, all the junior instructors go away. It's just the medics, because in case someone has some kind of issue, and then instructors and the candidates that are left that haven't rung the bell yet. And we go over toxic cognitions, which is the first sentence. They open up their journal. What is the worst thing that's ever happened to you? And I'll start reading mine. I go, the worst thing that's ever happened to me between the ages of 4 and 5 and 6 years old in Armenia, I was molested by 2 older boys. What did that do to me? So I go, now you guys write that down. And for the first time, they're fucking looking at their left and right, but now they're homies, they're friends, and it's the only evolution that has boxes of napkins, Kleenex, in between every guy.
Yeah.
Because it's just fucking waterworks. And we spent 4 hours on that evolution. The project really is just those 4 hours.
Bringing it to that, bro. It takes
75 hours to get
there. Yeah.
And I say what happened to me because I was molested as a kid, how it showed up in my relationship, how it showed up at work, how it showed up in my health, how I didn't love myself, how I always sabotaged my fitness goals, which is why I never went to bodybuilding. I went to powerlifting. I wanted to just want big and strong, and no one could ever do anything to me again. Which until I learned jiu-jitsu, I realized I could just be big and strong and still fall asleep or get armbarred. So, but psychologically, that's where I was, right? But that's what the project is, man. And then as men graduated the project, they would come back and help run other classes, like be junior instructors, set up the ice bath, tie the trucks together for the rope, for the truck pull, all that stuff, so we can go move faster through the evolutions. They were like, Bedros, if something like the project existed when I was a kid, I would never have to come to the project when I was older. In other words, they were saying, if we can raise good boys, we won't have to fix grown men.
Yeah.
Right? And I was like, you know what? I read this book called Raising a Modern Day Knight. And I read it, and Robert, I forget the author's name. But it's about how to raise your son as a modern day knight, a savage and a servant, confident, capable, protector, provider. And he talks about once they're teenagers, 13, 14 years old, you have to put them through rite of passage. Because a young girl has a rite of passage from a girl to a woman. She will sprout boobs, and then she has her period. And then mom goes, honey, you are now a woman. Like, you just had your period. You're now a woman. There's a physical thing that happens. What happened to us that says you're a man? Nothing.
Yeah.
It is dad's job to train us from the time to be rough and tumble. To like when we would fly as a family to places, we would go through SeaTac Airport a lot because my wife's from Mount Vernon. And so, the girls going to the restroom, and Andrew was 6 years old. I'm like, son, we stand with our back against the wall. That way we have 180 degrees to worry about, not 360. Okay, Dad. Till this day, he's 19. Still, like anywhere we go, to the gas station, whatever, he's on his iPhone. He's just back against the pump, like watching. And I share this with you because when he was 14 years old, I put him through his rite of passage experience. And I took 9 guys with me to the shoot house in Idaho that a friend runs for special operations. And we stressed him out for like 6-7 hours straight. And then at the end, the 9 of us, or 10 of us, myself included, linked up arms, got around him. And for 10 minutes, we were sharing what we would like to have learned when we were 14 years old, his age, that would have made our life better. Grown men, Green Berets, Navy SEAL, SWAT guy, multi-billion-dollar entrepreneurs were crying because this was Andrew's rite of passage into manhood. He's now won a seat at the table with the men.
Yeah.
And so as these guys...
And bro, almost all cultures around the world
have had that.
Have something.
Yeah.
We've lost that, though.
We've lost... Because I think it was deliberate.
Yeah.
Because
because now we have 30-year-old boys.
That's it. That's it. I remember saying this on my show one time. So okay, you, Greg. If Greg was like, hey, Bedros, I'm building my own army. I'm like, what's the cause? You're like, we're going to go into Canada and take over and make it the United States. Because let's say Trump's not president yet.
I was going to say, I kind of like where this is going.
Yeah, right? So I'm like, all right, Greg, I like where this is going. I've gotten no military experience, but I'm fit. Count me in. What do I need to do? So you like recruit your friends. So I recruit Ed and da-da-da. Now you've got this giant army of like formidable men. And you're going to lead us into taking over Canada. I'm like, fuck yeah, we're going to do this thing. But we're not worried about the women and children of Canada being the resistance against us. We're not worried about the elderly of Canada. We're only worried about
fighting age males.
Fighting age males. But then Greg says, now that we're all here, we're just going to stay on our side of the border over the next 2 or 3 years, and we're just going to message to them that they're weak, they're incompetent, they're toxic, they don't know right from wrong, they need to soften up, that masculinity is toxic. Now, 3 years later, Greg and his army walk in and take Canada without a single bullet flying.
Yeah.
That is what happened. That is what happened with this country.
I agree.
They stripped us of our masculinity, and everything that we are, they said, is wrong and toxic. And so men feel anxious and depressed because, well, you can't be rough and tumble. Like, you can't have a fight club. You can't do anything. And what I learned was...
Well, and then the other side of that is that the men that did feel like feminine energy, that was celebrated.
Right. Yeah, and now
celebrated.
Exactly.
Like, oh, yes, look at what he did.
Yeah. And so now all of a sudden, grown men are like, shit, maybe there is no place for me. Maybe I do need to change my ways. No, you don't. This is what the opposition does so that they can take away our country from us without a single bullet flying. And then they proved it during the pandemic.
Yep.
The compliance that humanity fucking had. So anyway, I decided we're going to create the Squire program. I called it the Squire program because I read the book, Raising a Modern Day Knight, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, if Dad is the knight, Andrew, my son, is my squire. And for the last 14 years, he's basically been cleaning my armor and knows how to change a car's oil, and I've taught him how to drive a manual car and open doors for ladies. And so now he's won a seat at the table to be a formidable man. This is great. So he's my squire. So I created the Squire program based on what graduates of the project told me, because the project was just for grown-ass men. Mm-hmm. And the Squire program is a 12-hour experience for fathers and sons. So we'll get like 40 fathers and sons together. Right now we have it in 6 locations across the country, 6 different states. And dude, this is just a passion project. And it's growing so quickly because fathers realize that I can go to this experience with my son. I'm going to sweat with him, or I'm going to box with him. I'm going to grapple with him. He might not punch me in the face and I might get a bloody nose, or vice versa. We're going to pull a truck. We're going to do the ice bath. And at the end, he blindfolds his son and he walks him through a 30-yard, using his voice alone to guide him through a 30-yard obstacle course of bear trap, razor wires, 2x4s with rusty nails sticking out. And he's guiding him. Take 2 steps forward, son. Okay, now take a big giant step. Okay, now your right leg, got it. You're over the 2x4.
No, left. Whoops.
Yeah.
Snap.
and then that's funny. There's us yelling, screaming, your dad's wrong. He's sending you the wrong place. Because in life, we tell them in life, you're going to hear a lot of noise. But if you trust your gut, your intuition will take you there.
Yeah.
But who trains your gut? Experience. Where does experience come from? The formidable men above you.
Yep.
Right? And so today, your dad's going to guide you. We're going to give distraction. If you listen to the distraction, that bear trap's going to get you because they see the whole obstacle course before they're blindfolded.
My wheels are turning right now. What do you need logistically to run that program?
Literally, like an industrial park, like just a space. Like our Houston location guy, he runs it out of a CrossFit, and then it's like an industrial thing, and it's got a little fucking back alley. You need 5 or 6 horse troughs for ice baths.
Yep.
A pickup truck with a battle rope to pull. Some telephone poles to carry.
Yeah.
It's a done deal.
So we can do that anywhere.
It's a done. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we
do need one in Washington.
Yeah, I run a small program. We only do a couple a year called Guns and Geese.
Guns and Geese, yeah.
Where guys will come up and do 3 days of shooting and grappling, and it's an immersion course.
Yeah.
And it's funny, too, because everything that you just said, in its inception, we're like, hey, how cool would it be to be able to introduce people to shooting and grappling? Guns and Geese is not about shooting and grappling.
Of course not.
Guns and Geese is about men sitting around a campfire at night and bonding.
Yeah.
And that's something like we implemented that just because we thought that'd be cool. Like, hey, we train all day and then we build a fire and we hang out at night. Yeah. And in the reviews at the end, every single time people are like bonfire nights. There's like, that's what I'm here for.
Because they're missing it.
They're missing it.
Bro, I read a stat, 87% of men, the average man, 87% of men do not have a single guy that they could trust and call if they're not home to say, hey, can you go? My wife's having a problem. My kid's having a problem. Can you
Wow.
go? That breaks my heart.
Yeah. But the cool thing is, and you already touched on in your program, in order to have and able to be able to sit around a campfire and be vulnerable, there has to be an element of trust built.
Yes.
And the work on the range and the mats is just enough to build that trust. Exactly. I always tell guys, I'm like, if you suck at shooting and fighting when you arrived here on Friday morning, Sunday evening, you're still going to suck at shooting and fighting. Let's just, I'm not here to sell you snake oil. Becoming proficient in something is years and years of your life. It's an exposure to something, and it's an exposure to the lifestyle. And you got to hit the ground running when you get home. But what they do learn is what camaraderie feels like.
Yeah.
And that's where the magic happens. Yeah. And it's funny because our range is on a 30-acre plot of land out in the mountains with a river that runs the whole eastern side of the property is a river, and so the southern and the eastern. So it's we'll have to talk offline.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool, man, because we got the jiu-jitsu academy, we got the ice plunge, and I've just been kicking around different ideas because it's like teaching guys to shoot is cool, teaching guys to grapple is cool, but how do we just empower men?
Yeah.
That really needs to be the mission.
And if you can carry it over to the generation that they are influencing, then you know that at least for 2 more generations, you've got impact. You've got impact. And I believe we can do it. Maybe I'm just an idealist.
I don't think so, man, because it's like, haters will be like, oh, bro, you can't fucking, you're only changing 12 people's lives or whatever. You're not going to be able to change the world or the temperature of society. And it's like, every person's life that you change has the potential to change the world. Yeah. That's the reality of it.
And by the way, we don't need everybody to change the world. Like we saw that in this last election.
That's right.
We didn't have 100% for voting for Trump. Just enough to right the ship.
Yep, for sure.
That's all we need. And I think guys like you and me and others who are out there doing this kind of good work, because it's not a profit monster at all. Like it's a labor of love. You know what I mean? Like my Fit Body Bootcamp franchises, they make us money. That's how I am able to run these kind of experiences at break even or a loss. Now the Squire program makes money for the guys running it. When I run mine at my ranch, I just go all out because I bring like Navy SEALs to teach fucking shooting experiences. I bring the best of the best. But I say that because it's not foolish. I really believe like we can change the generation, and that generation will go on to influence just through example, right? Through example, like, man, I want to be more like that guy. what is he doing? How's he living? What's his life like? What is his core values? And soon, like, the best preaching is through example.
Yeah.
Anyway. So if I can create 12 young men all over the country, 12 young, or, you know, in this case, we do like 20 to 40 at a time. Right now we have it 6 different states, hopefully 7th in the future. But I think over time we can have just enough to create change and to stop negative change from happening. Yeah.
Well, bro, and as I'm just thinking about this as we're talking, you know, if you go to any like therapy or plant medicine ceremonies or like very, very often you can trace back a lot of problems in people's life to a single moment of trauma.
Yes.
Hey, this person did this to me, and look at the fallout. So why couldn't the opposite be true? Mm-hmm. Hey, in a single moment, man, you learned about your father's love or your belief in yourself or whatever that. Why couldn't a single moment do the opposite? And that rite of passage, that single moment, could potentially change the trajectory of the rest of that kid's life.
You know, I just want to brag. I'm not a braggadocious person, but I just want to brag about one tiny thing about the Squire program. When I started it, foolishly, I didn't factor in the 50% divorce rate, right? So 50% of kids don't have dad around 24/7. And
so sometimes they don't even know the guy they're going through it with.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's that. Other times, there's a handful of kids, probably, I don't know what the stats are, but I would estimate about 20% of young boys, probably girls too, don't know who their dad is.
Yeah.
Period. So they're being raised by single moms. And maybe grandpa's too old to go through this experience with them. And so when mom started to reach out, like, hey, I've got a 14-year-old son. I want him to go through this experience. Dad's not in his life. I don't have an older brother or he doesn't have an older brother. I don't have an uncle. I was like, wait a minute. Let me reach out to my friends from the military, because I coach a lot of guys from special operations. So I do business coaching, right? Teach entrepreneurs and guys that come out of special operations and want to create a business. I'm like, look, you're going to fuck it all up because you weren't taught that. So with all due respect, I'm going to give you 50% discount on my coaching. I'm going to teach you how to do it right. You're going to do it right, and that's that. So I've coached like Nick Kumalastos, Jason Redman, like some badass dudes. But I share this with you because now I reach out to those guys. I'm like, hey, would you be a stand-in for this young man? Just be a mentor and go through the Squire program with him? Like, fuck yeah. So now I've got like this like metaphorical army of men who I trust. Yeah. Entrepreneurs, pro athletes, former military guys that I can say, hey, here's a mom who has a young man. There's no male figure in that young man's life. I'm going to comp the experience for her and her son, or for the son, but I need you. Can you go through? And every guy says yes, and it's an awesome experience, and they keep that bond, so they stay connected via text and Zoom, etc.
Wow. Yeah.
So like, what a fucking rad like ecosystem we're creating. You know, like even the single moms can be like, I'll bring my kid over. And if you can't afford it, fuck it. We'll put your kid through it for free. I don't give a fuck. Mm-hmm. And I've told all 6 of the locations I'm like, hey, if a single mom reaches out to you and says money is the only issue, you have to put them through it for free. Yeah. And they're like, roger that, we can do that. Like, it's a fucking cool thing we're doing.
Dude, it's rad.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's like, it should be very scalable.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like for you to like take over the market. I'm saying like everybody listening, what could you do in your community to empower the young men?
Yeah.
What could you build, or what could you like just, you said it's a 12 hours.
Yeah.
Man.
12 hours. Yep.
All right. I know what I'm thinking about tonight. Because, bro, we have to be starting to kick these different ideas around if we want to change the trajectory.
We can't just say, now that we've got the right president in office, he can do it all.
Bro,
we have to do it here in our town.
I've been saying that because, I mean, there was a big kind of shift in energy around the whole country for this election.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people were upset about a lot of things, and for good reason, right? But that was what I was saying from day one. If you think one man is going to fucking change, like, I fucking quadrupled my income under Biden. So it's like, just because shitty things are happening and shitty people are in charge, you can still go out there and make it fucking happen, right? And the opposite is true too. If good people are in charge and they're making things happen on their end, you can go out there and fuck it up too.
Yep.
Like,
Amen.
No matter what happens in life, there's going to be winners and losers.
Yep.
So who are you going to be?
That's it. You have to make a conscious decision. And that goes back to external locus of control versus internal locus of control. Because you can blame Biden, you can blame Trump all you want, but at some point you blame both parties and you're still a fucking loser. The problem's you, right?
Exactly.
At that point?
Yeah. Man, we're already at 1 hour and 40 minutes. This is fucking awesome.
Yeah,
This has been fun. I usually go about 2 hours, but obviously this is your time. If you need to bounce it off.
Piss like a racehorse. I can take a piss and we can restart if you want, or wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up. I would like for you to. I think the last message that I'd like to leave listeners with is what you would say to the police officer that's been on for 12 years, that feels like he has no hope, and that he has 8 to go until retirement, and like. That's one of the most common themes that I get from men that are miserable in their profession and they feel stuck.
Yeah.
And they're like, dude, I don't have a plan B. What do I do?
Well, I'll tell that police officer what I told Bobby Dean, who's a LA County Sheriff's deputy, and what I told Julian Serrano, who's a Tampa firefighter paramedic. Both of them are still active. I told Bobby Dean, I'm like, look, with the way they're scheduled, because the schedule's not like a regular 9 to 5, right? It's like 4 on, 3 off, and whatever. Like, I told Bobby, he's a dear friend of mine. We've been friends for a long time, and he's like, I need to make more money because California's expensive. I go, Roger that. I go, what if you're a former wrestler, great cop, hardworking man, fit as fuck. I go, what if you started an online coaching program? He's like, I don't want to fuck with online stuff. Cool. Open up a Fit Body Bootcamp. Open up one of my franchises. Opens up a Fit Body Bootcamp because it's a franchise. You plug in a team, a facility leader, and a couple of coaches. He did. Built that thing up to 360 clients in it at $199 a month. Sold it for $413,000. And now he has the option of whether he wants to be a cop or not, right? And so, but for the longest time, for 3 years that he built it up, he was making about $40,000 a month in revenue, keeping $11,000 of it in profit on a monthly basis, in addition to his cop salary. Julian Serrano, on the other hand, fit, firefighter, one of our project graduates. Like, look, being a firefighter is cool, but I don't want to just count the years off. How do I make more money? I'm like, dude, you're in awesome shape. You're a great medic. There's some value that you can add. The answer is not necessarily, not everyone has to go and open up a Fit Body Bootcamp.
Yeah.
But there's some value that you have, some additional skill that you have. You can use social media. So he counts his macros because he competes as a long distance runner. And I'm like, you got to start helping first responders get in better shape. So he's got a side gig making $18,000 a month. Like 50% of that is profit because it's all online coaching, right? And he's still a firefighter, but now he's also, because he's got a wife, he's got a kid on the way, he's also making another 6 figures on top of his firefighter salary. So when a firefighter or a cop say that I'm stuck and I'm counting them the days, you're not stuck, because I've also, a good friend of mine, Columbus, Ohio, Bobby Vaccio, he's a fire captain. And he invited me and Andrew to go there when Andrew was 11 years old. He goes, hey, spend 2 nights with us in station. Go on the runs with us. Do whatever. So after going to like 3 runs, I'm like, Bobby, I thought we'd be putting out fires. We just keep helping crackheads fucking come back to life.
Welcome to the profession.
Yeah. Again, like what you think a firefighter does today versus what they do, right? But it was cool to put on the things and like to be in the back as they're putting up on their shit. And Andrew's having a blast. So Andrew kept going on the rides. I stayed at the station and started talking to the other guys who weren't going out. I noticed they all have fucking recliners. You ever been to a fire station? I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
There's just fucking recliners in front of a TV, and they know every movie by heart. So if there's recliners, that means your ass is glued to it. And if you know every movie by heart,
you
like
got time.
The fucking director, then you got time, motherfucker. And so don't complain to me about money and say it must be nice. Thanks for coming out and buying us steaks because we don't normally eat steak. It must be nice.
That's right.
No, motherfucker, it's not. It's nice, but it's because I earned it. And so I was like preaching to them, and before you know it, they started going on runs instead of like, we'd rather fucking leave the station and not talk to this fucking idiot. I was just fucking letting them have it, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I'm like, hey man, you've got a wife? Yeah. You got a couple kids? Yeah. Well, you're here glued to the television, but life is going to get more expensive. And this is pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Like, I just know life is always going to get more expensive. There will never be a time in our life that things get cheaper.
Yeah.
Period. Like, inflation's not going away. This is a new price of gas. This is a new price of eggs.
Yep.
It's just we'll all start making more money, and so the gap in between is what we keep.
Yep.
But inflation's not going away. It is what it is, period. And so I was like, dudes, you all have a skill. So one of those guys, to his credit, he went on to start he's a welder. He went on to make outdoor barbecues. So on his 3 days off, when he's off, he makes outdoor barbecues for dudes in Blacklick and Columbus, Ohio, that have like a backyard kitchen. And he's not making like six figures additionally, but he's making a few thousand more per month from doing those. And it's a hit and miss thing. But there's value that you can add that your profession allows you to like be someone. Ryan Tillman, he's a cop here in Chino. He fucking stopped being a cop a year and a half ago because he created Breaking Barriers United. All he would do is, like, as a cop on his days off, he would take police shooting videos and break it down like most other YouTube cops do. Except he did it in a way, because I coached him, on being able to get attention right and stopping people from scrolling. And then he created Breaking Barriers United, which helps communities and cops come together. So now he's a public speaker, and he's touring the country speaking at schools and universities, bringing communities and cops together. But for 4 years, he did that on the side. Breaking Barriers United, creating content, monetizing YouTube and Instagram money, and getting the occasional speaking gig on during the days that. So like, there's value that you can add. You can either open up a gym, weld fucking barbecues together. You could bring cops and communities together. You could create fitness programs for fat firefighters and cops. But you can't just sit on your fucking ass because it's your day off, because that's not what a fucking man does.
Yeah,
that's what I would tell the cops.
Yeah, I love that, man.
I mean, it makes sense,
right?
It's
because it's rooted in truth.
That's when you rock. Know? That's when you start going down the vice fucking rabbit hole anyway.
And and the biggest thing I see in that profession, it's either imposter syndrome or that's the story they tell themselves, so they don't have to get off their ass. But it's like, well, I don't know this, I don't know that.
Figure it out.
Yeah, figure it out.
Like that guy right there, Ed. He's a fucking badass DJ on the weekends. Has a fucking crew of dudes who he deploys to go film weddings. Great videographer, DJ, and photographer. And now he's gotten into car culture, and he's fucking doing photo shoots and shit, and has all these cars that he buys and flips.
And he can strangle you.
And he can strangle you, right? Like,
yeah.
He makes the time. He's married. He's married to my assistant, Joan, and he's got a kid, so he can't say he's a single man who's got no kid.
Yeah.
He's doing it. And Ed, where did you learn how to be a DJ?
YouTube.
Where did you learn how to be a videographer?
YouTube.
For those of you who didn't hear, he said YouTube to both.
Yeah.
YouTube, the University of YouTube, absolutely free, taught this fucking man to be a badass entrepreneur, and we get to work together.
It's fucking rad,
and
man.
He gets to choke me out.
Dude. All right, well, we'll wrap it up, bro. I know you got to hit the head. Last thing, I guess, just where can people find you? I know you have a podcast, you have your book, you have all that stuff.
Best place to find me is either on Instagram or YouTube at Bedros Keuilian, and they can just watch all my content for free. And if it adds value to their lives, just share it with others.
Cool, man. All right, well, I appreciate it, and I'm happy we finally knocked this out.
Same, man.
We're gonna do it again.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, man.